we need to pay attention to the relationships that we are building, to the people that we are building them with. We always say, give me my flowers now. How much do I know about you?
Yes.
How much do I know about the things that are important to you? How much do I know and am willing to admit about what you mean to me? Because when I have that in place, then I know how to hold on and how to let go.
Oh, that is so wonderful. So wonderful. Because when you said death begins at life, how we treat people, the kindness that we give people.
Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, where we get VIP access into the lives of Black women, or as we like to call us here, our SistaNistas. We get to hear from some of our favorite SistaNistas as they share their worlds with us and create connections, exchange realities, ideas, and baby, we get to recognize and celebrate how powerful we really are and the kind of inspiration that proves we can be even greater. This is our world, where if you ain't a Black woman, you may want to be one, or definitely get to know one. It's a Black women's world, and we welcome our SistaNista lovers too. Welcome to our queendom. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and I'm your host, TracyMac. Come on in and relax, and sit with me for just a little while. Peace.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm TracyMac, your professional peacemaker and host of Black Women's World Podcast. That's the BWWP, baby. And as I promised, I bring to you Black women who are remarkable so you can see how powerful we really are. Because listen, if you ain't a Black woman, you may want to be one. Or if not, get to know one. And I want you to know this lady right here, this doctor, elder, coach, poet, author, all things Miss Hines. Listen, you have got to go back and listen to part 1 of this episode. The episode title, Grief. It's personal and it's complicated because Miss Hines dropped some nuggets. She dropped some nuggets for us to be able to live with grief because we're going to have to live with it. You got a book called Nanny Nuggets, don't you, Miss Hines?
Yes, I surely do.
So she'll be dropping some nuggets. Also, her show, When Life Speaks. The tagline for that is so beautiful. When life speaks, speaks life. And if you want to look at Miss Hines, I'm telling you, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8, you can jump right on Facebook, baby. She is there. Miss Hines, we've been talking about it. The people are going to go back and listen to part 1, so we're going to jump right into part 2.
Sounds good.
And that all things grief fatigue, the way we deal with grief, especially as Black women. We're talking about it from our perspective. We've already did our disclaimer about we're not grief counselors nor grief coaches, but we got a good, at least about 100 years between us, Miss Hines.
That's scary. That is scary.
And it's not funny, but then again, hey, life throws stuff at you. You got to, laughter is a good medicine indeed. And so we talked about in part 1, and please go back and listen to it because we're building upon this conversation. So don't start in part 2 because you're going to miss so many things to help you. Don't start in part 1 because you're going to miss so many things to help you understand part 2. So you can get these tips and tools of how to live with grief. So we talked about the NPR article by Stephanie O'Neill in their segment called Life Kit. And I will have the show notes to that at the bottom with the link, not only to the link to that, but the link to Miss Hines, some other options as far as some support for grief, dealing with grief. But we already talked about points 1 through 3. We want to talk about, go to point number 4 now, Miss Hines. When Stephanie talks about in dealing with grief or living with grief, ping pong between the loss and the restoration. She mentioned the example of sometimes during the loss side of the ping pong, you're laying in bed, you're crying, don't want to get out of bed. And then sometimes with the restoration, maybe you go for a walk. Maybe you do something good for yourself to help you recover from those feelings those emotions, whether they be guilt or anger or the physical pain or sometimes the fear. So give us an example on how you think, some tips and tools on how to more easily ping pong between those that loss and restoration.
I think with that, actually, it is the same with the entire process. When we were talking earlier about there's some choices that you have to make, and there's some decisions that you will make as a result of those choices. I think that when you acknowledge the fact that you are, number one, grieving, that number two, it's going to take time, that number three, it is your time and your timing. It's not predicated about what anybody else thinks you ought to be doing or when you ought to be doing it or any of those things. Then you can relax in the fact that there is going to come a moment where you're going to get tired of being in the bed, where you're going to get tired of being by yourself, where you're going to get tired of not having to or being able to talk to anyone. Because sometimes part of getting the pong out of that ping is to be able to just have somebody listen to you.
Yeah.
That's all you. That's the turning point. You know, if part of what I think in my mind that pulls us, or I'll say me, into that depressed place is having, number one, someone not respond the way that I need them to respond. And then number two, being at a place where I don't want to share my vulnerability.
You said the V word.
Yeah, because particularly with people in the church.
Miss
Because
Hines,
we've got to be strong. We have to be strong. We have to be there for everybody else. And I know in the last and you have to show people sometimes how to treat you while you're pinging and ponging.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
they need to understand some things about you, and sometimes they may not take it the right way, but you got to take that risk. When I was talking about the two deaths that I experienced back to back like that, I had to explain to people, I am generally a hugger. I was a greeter at my church for years. And people said, I came because, you would greet me at the door. You'd be so warm and this, that, and the other. That is typically, or till Jesus changed my life. That typically was not my story.
Okay.
People who know me know that my disclaimer was I'd be a horrible witness to any crime because I'm not watching. I'm head down, moving, going where I need to go. I said if I was on an elevator, I would ride 12 floors. Couldn't tell you whether men were on it, women were on it, anything else, because people would talk to you. If you say hello, it goes into a full-fledged conversation. So if I talk to you, you're going to want to talk to me. We're going to get into a whole thing. No, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. But God did change my heart. He changed my life in that respect. So I'm used to hugging. Anybody want to hug? Hey, I got you. I got to shake your knee, shoulder. I got you. But for me, in grief situations, in tough situations, I don't want the patent press. It takes me to a place that I don't want to be in because I'm making an attempt to be strong. I'm making an attempt to deal with that. And some people are not happy. And I hate to say it. I hate to put it this way, but some people are not happy until you break.
Yes.
I have watched people do that. And I've watched people do that. But they'll say, you don't feel well, do you? I know this is going to be so difficult for you. I know it's hard.
Yeah, that's how they
do.
You
just want to cry. And when you break, they pat you and then they go away.
Yeah.
And you're left broken. So for me, if I explained to the group, I said, if I am trying to be strong and you try to hug me and I don't respond to that, that's not the time.
Exactly. And that goes back
to give me the space.
Yeah. When you said in part one of Grief is Personal and It's Complicated, you were talking about how people, relate when they're dead, but you talked about knowing your love language. And that comes out of relationship. Not only the relationship with yourself is for you to know what it is. The relationship with other people is for you to be able to articulate that. And that requires the V word, the vulnerability word. And we had an earlier show earlier this year with LaTanya Jr. She talked about vulnerability being a strength and a strategy. And it matters because vulnerability is not weakness. And so when we think about how we need it, and something I used to still do believe in, but teach the coaches, is you have to understand your relationship currency.
Yes.
What is your relationship currency? You give this to get what? There's an exchange that happens. There's a life exchange that happens. Every person, including the stranger that you speak to, it's an exchange. So even when it comes to grief, we have exchanges still with the living. We had an exchange with the deceased, or if it's with, like I said, if you're divorced and that relationship, you're grieving that relationship,
right?
Or you're no longer employed because of the lockdown and COVID. From all over the world, people are having to change careers, and maybe you loved what you did, or you liked the money, or you were close to retirement, and it's hard to come back from that. Thing is dead now. Yes. And how do we come back from that? We can't come back to what it was, but how can we live with the grief and use these tools? So that ping pong, and I love everything you said about that, Ms. Hines. And then because you use the word broken, and that leads right to number 5.
Wow.
Anytime you're grieving, grief will break you down, but grief can also break you wide open if you let it. If you let it. And I will tell you, back to, as I said in part 1, some of the ways I deal with a lot of things in life is music. And another a friend of ours, Miss Hines, knew her because she was going through my coach certification program while Miss Hines was going through, I think you were going through for training purposes, because you'd already gotten your certification, Linda. And I knew my friend Linda ever since 1982.
Right.
She was much older. And when we talk about, one of the ways I think is a great way to live with grief is being able to talk about the deceased. Let me go back to what I also thought when you mentioned as far as people in the church. Miss Hines, I grew up in the church, but that don't mean nothing because my dad said you can raise windows in the church. But a real relationship with God. I know the saints. I know how we are. I have to say we, because I ain't disowning nobody. I know how we are. We don't like to talk about death outside of going to heaven. We don't want to talk about sex, and we very rarely talk about money. But when it comes to this particular subject, we should be the first ones to be able to talk about it. And I know that it's hard no matter what your belief system is, but these are the times when you can use, as Stephanie put in the article, ways for somebody, the loss of a loved one or grief in itself, to break you open. And thinking about Linda, back in, I'm related to music. Linda was an organist for our church. And Linda was white, and our church was majority Black, or just about to say 90% Black. And Linda could play, and she could play by ear, and she could read music. But Linda didn't have that. She couldn't wind up a Hammond, none of that. And so she was like, "You're gonna have to help me." And I'll never forget that Linda and we would always meet before choir rehearsal and group rehearsal, and I would try to help her put some of those chords and chord progressions into the song to kind of, put some flavor on it, And the song that comes to mind with Linda is one of the first songs that she was able to put some gospel flavor to in a real way, to the point it hit both of us. We was in there grooving, was a song called Stir Up the Gift by Colorado Mass Choir. And that's the song I listened to with Linda. But every time I listen to it, it really breaks me open because it helped me. I started writing music around that time, And so when she passed 2 years ago, I was hurt. Linda, you weren't supposed to go. This is supposed to happen. But it allowed me to break myself open to some of the things that Linda was so vulnerable. Linda would literally pick up an animal, her animal off the side of the street and take it home and nurse it. She did it with people. She helped everybody. And so I was like, the memory of her and how she was as a person, I've always been like, I'm helpful. But Linda would get in the trenches with someone. And so it broke me down when she died. But I was like, the best way for me to remember my friend Linda Ray, Juno Slantis Turner Randolph, because Linda was all that, is to be what she was to the degree I can. And so the breakdown broke me open to literally touch and get into the, not just you have my prayers, here's a card and here's $100, to let me get in the kitchen and wash your dishes. Let me fix your food. You need me to help you make your bed. That's the type of person she was. Now, I've been that to friends and family, but it's another level to it, all because I knew Linda. All because I knew Linda.
Relationship.
That relationship. So that breaks you down, and grief can break you open if you let it. How has grief broken you open, Ms. Hines?
I think when you get to the point where you can understand that, first of all, grief is okay. I think that's the beginning of it all. That you don't have to be strong for everybody. That you don't have to be everybody else's shoulder when you need one yourself. I think those are the important catalysts that get us to a point of understanding that breaking open is a good thing.
Yes.
It is a good thing.
Yes.
And so many times we don't think it is. And that's because of whatever has been placed upon us that we think we need to carry. And we don't have to carry everything for everybody.
Yes. Especially as Black women. Especially as Black women.
Mm-hmm. It's our nature to nurture. It's our nature to fix it. It's our nature to be the one that everybody else comes to. But when you are the well, what happens when the well runs dry? You get to that place where you need to draw. You need to be able to do that, and you can't. But Tracy, I always think about, it is a saying that we put out there a lot. And I know you probably said it. I know I've said it to people sometimes, and it's all you need is a good cry.
If
I could just have a good cry. Cleanse this, wash this, get this out of me, get this through me, I would feel so much better.
Yes.
If you're dealing with grief, it's the same thing. Let it happen. Let it overflow. Let it go. When you do that, you are going to be okay.
And you know what, Ms. Hines, I agree with you so much. It is okay to cry. I don't know why we think crying is a weakness. It's another emotion. We have laughter, we have anger. We get to use all these tools. Crying can be cleansing. And I know, you sometimes we want to be careful with who we cry with. But let me tell you, sometimes it just gets to a point. I have cried in the presence of strangers because I tried to hold something too long. And then it just overflowed when I couldn't control it. But what's in the well gonna come up in the bucket. I don't care I don't care if you try to suppress it. And I think that happens a lot when we try to suppress, and all of a sudden we explode. Or whether we should have been sad, we suppress it to the point it turns into anger. Or sometimes just sadness, we suppress it until it turns into depression. And then it gets into areas where we do need to seek help, or it gets dangerous to us when we don't.
Stay tuned for more of the BWWP. An Amazon best-selling author with an Art Book Club Incorporated 5-star rating and your self-discovery companion, TracyMac is setting positive change ablaze with her 3 incredible books.
Looking for an interactive resource that reveals how to strategically overcome obstacles that can hinder you from developing your purpose and consistently enjoy the limitless benefits of living your best life? Well, grab your copy of TracyMac's book, The Book of Purpose, The You Testament. Through true stories, real-world examples, and thought-provoking questions and principles, you can make your best dreams a reality and achieve big goals that sustain peace in your life. Your solution has arrived. If you are ready to live an amazing life of change with sustainable results and measurable success, get your copy of one or all three of these awesome books where fine books are sold today to start your journey.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast.
Let's continue the conversation.
And so I appreciate the 5 suggestions that Stephanie had in the article. And Ms. Hines and I have some of our own when it comes to grief. It's personal and it's complicated. But I think sometimes we as adults and as Black women, we tend to complicate things when they don't have to be. You're supposed to feel sad when someone that you love is no longer with you. It's supposed to be. You know, it's part of our humanity. And you said earlier, as far as talking, I think I think CBT therapy, behavioral therapy through talking, I think it's underrated. When we just talk and have someone, me and Ms. Hines, we're both keynote speakers, and we're talking now because we have to. We're on podcast minutes, but we also are trained in listening. And so when you listen to someone, do you know how much I have gotten more compliments, clients, money, results from just listening? Mm-hmm. Simply listening, a judgment-free zone, not having to say anything. Even with my daughter, you know, as a parent, you want to come in with the advice. They say this, you want to say that. I say, Jada, whenever you're talking to me, give me a 1 or 2. 1 means I'm just talking. You don't have to say nothing. 2 is let it rip. Talking it out. Ms. Hines, you talked about your father, your 2 friends that passed away. You know, I talked about Lyndon, Cornell, and Guy, you know, when I think about these people, but I think, you know, remembering them, you know, now being involved in some aspects of corporate with grief fatigue and helping people get through it. We've started doing something. Ms. Hines, your camera's out, but we're going to keep rolling. If you come back to us. There you go.
I've got something going on with my battery here. I am so sorry.
No, don't apologize for that. Don't apologize. We're going to make it work. Things happen. Technology happens. But, you know, when it comes to just remembering people, we have so many ways we can. We get to connect. We get to look at how we relate, the aspect of relationships. We talked about that. And I think one way of living with grief is having something intangible, a way to remember a person, having a way, because if the tangible thing goes away, and I know we have clothes and memories and whatever, but Ms. Hines, what's something that we may not have mentioned about the reality of grief and it being personal and complicated that you would like to offer?
Well, I think it comes from what you were saying earlier, the aspect of relationship and being able to define what that relationship is. Because when you have a relationship that I have with my sister, and the things I may have remembered about her would be different than the relationship that I had with a church member or friend or somebody in an organization. I may miss them, but the degree to which I miss them and the things that I remember about them would be vastly different.
Yes.
So I think as we are, like I said, we start at grief, but we need to start at life. We start at death, but we need to start at life. And as we are going through life, we need to pay attention to the relationships that we are building, to the people that we are building them with. We always say, give me my flowers now. You know, how much do I know about you?
Yes.
How much do I know about the things that are important to you? How much do I know and am willing to admit about what you mean to me? Because when I have that in place, then I know how to hold on and how to let go.
Oh, that is so wonderful. So wonderful. Because when you said death begins at life, how we treat people, the kindness that we give people, we, especially as Black folks, because that's who I'm talking to and about, and I know white folks do it too. I've been at all kind of funerals, even Hispanic community or the Latino community, the Asian community. We all have different ways, even the East Indian community, of how we memorialize and funeralize our deceased loved ones. It's all different. Right, but the most I've been to is Black folks. Now, folks anywhere can cut up at a funeral, and a lot of times, and I know where we can all attest, the person that's usually cutting up the most, the life part won't work. The life that we all will miss them in different ways. But it's like when you settle a thing with a person, that if I or them pass today, I am so good. In the sense of what I will miss about them is their presence, not because I missed out.
And that's vastly different.
Yes. And I think that really matters on how we live. I love the fact that you said it's not, we start at death, but I think we have to start at life. We're going to feel the loss. We're going to feel the sadness. We're going to have those hot flash moments of grief when they just hit us out of the blue. And we're going to have even the secondary grief that we talked about in the first episode or the first part one. The second, you hear about a celebrity passing away and it may trigger. You hear about a friend. And one thing, Ms. Hines, how would you suggest, and I think this is one of the last areas we want to cover on the two episodes of this, how would you suggest, because we're in a social media world, social media is not going away. And I've got some things, I believe, but I really want to hear from you. When we hear about somebody passing away, it happens. We get it on Facebook. People don't send sympathy cards hardly anymore. How do you think we ought to behave with that? So we're just not putting up fonts and an emoji and swallowing that announcement or the realization. How do you think some ways we can handle hearing about a death or even announcing that a person has passed away?
I think you have to, first of all, be respectful of the individual and their family. They may not be with you anymore, but their family still is. And I know it's an old adage about how would you like to be treated? Yeah. But sometimes that's the easiest place to start. How would you like to be treated? If this was your son, your daughter, your father, your whatever, what would you like to have happen? How would you like to hear the news? How would you like to share the news if it were you? Yeah. And I think that's what has to or can help to govern how we handle things and when we handle things, the timing of which we were trying desperately to make calls to let people know about a death before they got to church. We didn't have a chance. It was already out there on social media. Yeah. It was already there. And people were already finding out that way. So we've kind of been instructed, when you hear about a death, take a breath. Yes. Take a moment. Don't be so quick to be the first one to deliver the news. Just sit back a minute. Let the family, think about the family. Let the family take the lead. Let the family, govern and kind of direct and help you to maneuver and steer through what is out there. And that is the best thing that I think people can do. You have to have enough empathy to put yourself in someone else's shoes and allow that to govern how you will govern yourself in that situation.
I like that. Put some empathy on your sympathy. Put some empathy on your sympathy, because it's appointed for all of us to pass away at some point. And so I like that, Miss Hines. How would you want someone to make it known? And even sometimes people try to do something on a sneak tip. Oh, I lost my friend. They don't mention the name, but then people hitting them on the DMs and who died. Even that, I think we can be more tactful about that, because there's a level of I taught a class and to the high school students and young college students, but I think adults need it too, on social media etiquette, on how we behave, because it is a part of our social lives. If we have etiquette and other forms of relationship, I think we need, but people going to be opinionated and do whatever. But I think some people don't know what they don't know. Some people ain't had no home training. Some people ain't had no social media training. They just threw this thing out there called social media and we just ran with it. But wow. But I think this is a way to, like you said, take that breath. I think the other thing too is when we type our thoughts and prayers, maybe even respond to the person on the next level of a text, maybe not a phone call, because I've helped friends and even myself, whenever a loved one passes, you're inundated with calls. Some people out of sincere condolences, some want to be nosy, some just all kind of reasons why people should call you. Some just want to offer, their help. But I think sometimes being able to layer that next area of notification with a text. Maybe I heard your loved one pass, name the name of who that is. Is there anything I can be or do? Now, here's the odd thing about that particular statement. It goes back to relationships, because a lot of times we don't want to offer that statement to people because we're afraid of what they may ask for.
Right. Wow.
So when you offer that statement, be completely comfortable with what that may look like. And then it may be good often on social media to offer again and again and again. Don't just offer it one time, because as we've said in part one of this, and even this part two, that grief is lifelong. It is not going away. We find other ways to deal with it, but still sometimes it can hit like it never hit before on a day you're not even thinking about it. So I think when it comes to social media, you can type prayers and condolences and the praying hands and the hearts, because that's how social media communicates. But if your relationship has been off the book and outside of the gram, make sure that your condolences and your words also rest outside of the gram and off of the book. You know what I'm saying, Ms. Hines? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And there's one word that we have not dealt with, at least I don't think that we have, through what we're talking about today. And I think that it goes back to when you were saying that people don't know what they don't know. And I always think about what's in you comes out of you. Yes. Whatever's in you is going to come out of you. In the process of life, in the journey of life that we all take, there has to be sensitivity. If I am a person who knows how to employ and embrace sensitivity, there's some things that are just not going to pop off the top of my head. Because that sensitivity is going to help to govern and guide the things that I do. Now, I'm not saying that means you cry over everything. I'm not saying that that you are that person. That's not what I mean at all. But I think and I think your listeners understand that. Sometimes you just got to be a little sensitive. Sometimes you have to put the other person's needs, their need of privacy, their need of space, their need of all of that before your need to know. Your need to share,
and their need to process, because I think we can go from a coaching perspective of this, because when you said that, if you're the first talebearer, and then what? You got to ask yourself those type of questions. If I'm the first to tell it, and then what? Thinking about how it makes that consideration. How does it make that person feel? Okay, you said it first. Okay. I got a friend of mine. She's always the first one want to go to the movies. I'm usually the last. I went and saw so. Okay, I see it when it come on Netflix or on TV. You don't want no. Okay, you saw it first. Okay, And so when it comes, and I know, and I'm not down on anybody who does that. I'm just not one. And when it comes to somebody dropping some new music, I want to be the first.
There you are.
I have my areas, but when it comes to something as simple as the loss of a loved one, any type of death, any type of thing that you may be grieving, you don't have to be first. You don't have to be first. And I love you said, take a breath. Take a breath and think. Think. How would I want my friends to find out about me? Or how would I want my loved ones? Because I have found out about relatives on social media before people in their houses knew.
Right.
And that is that will make
devastating.
That exacerbates the sadness and the devastation of the loss. Because there's a protocol to this thing. And I know that, some manners are out the door. Some people, when I think about manners, I think about table manners. Okay. We know that you can have 4 forks and knives on each side. You can have your butter knife. You can have your dish over here. My dad made sure we knew all of that type of stuff as far as table settings. Well, it's kind of irrelevant now in my house because you're going to get a paper plate on some days, But I think this is now time for us to implement some type of manners and etiquette when it comes to grief, because it is personal and it's definitely complicated. Miss Hines, with all your wisdom, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your vulnerability. I thank you for the nuggets that you've dropped. Is there anything, and including sensitivity that you just mentioned, that you would like our BWWP listeners and our SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers to know? Because they requested this topic, and I think we even put down some juicy, good stuff for them to live with. Anything else?
Just know what you need, know what you desire, know what you deserve, and be okay with that. That's all. That's all.
Miss Hines, you never let me down. Never let me down.
I love you, Miss TracyMac.
I love you too, because what you've said to the audience, I also receive for myself, and I hope people receive it. And I do want to offer in closing, if you do need any type of grief counseling, therapy of any kind, mental health related, grief related, get it. If you need a grief coach, get it. You deserve it. You and your friends do not have the capacity to deal with some of the things we're dealing with now. We are bombarded with a lot of different things. And I hope this has brought you a sense of peace. I don't like to call myself the professional peacemaker if I don't bring peace everywhere, because peace is who I am. But if you need something to refer to, I want you to go to healgrief.org. Healgrief.org. If there's some things you want to read and print, because we at this time don't offer transcripts of the podcast. If there's some things you want to read and print, I'll also drop this down in the show notes because I want to be a resource of help. So we thank Ms. Hines for being with us. We thank you for listening to another episode of the BWWP. We will be coming back to you with show topics that you've asked for: money, dating over 40, relationships, marriage. We're going to be bringing all that stuff to you. If you want to connect with me, or if you want to be on Black Women's World Podcast or suggest someone, please email me at peace@blackwomensworld.com. And we'll take you through a vetting process, and hopefully we can connect with you. If you want to join our Facebook group, we have a community on Facebook. It is private at the moment. We have Black Women's World Podcast YouTube channel. If you're listening, we are on different platforms. We're our podcast, about 21 different ones, and we're over in different countries. And thank you for being a SistaNista and a SistaNista lover from wherever you are in the world. Hopefully, we have said something to help you deal with grief, because it's personal. And it is complicated, but hopefully you got some peace about it now. Much love.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac, Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time, so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose, through mission, with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.